Hey guys, Todd here. Today we're going to install the S&B Cold Air Intake system on this 2019 Ford Raptor. For this installation, I'm using a fastener removal tool, ratchets with extensions. The sockets I'm using are a 13mm, 10mm, 7/16, 8mm, 7mm. I'm also using a Phillips head screwdriver and a small regular head screwdriver, as well as a 7/16 wrench. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now the first thing we want to do is remove our negative battery terminal. After we've done that, go ahead and locate your inlet air temperature sensor. It's on this main tube. If you follow that around, this is your IAT right here. Now, all you have to do is squeeze it and pull it off. If you've got a piece of tape wrapped around it, it might be easier to pull off the piece of tape first, but it just pulls right off. Okay, next we've got 3 band clamps we need to loosen up to remove this tube. Let me show you how to do each one of those band clamps. Basically what you do is you take and loosen up the clamp. Once it's nice and loose, you're not actually going to completely remove it. You just want to get it loosened up and then rotate it to where it slides over to the notch. Do that on all 3 of these clamps and we can wiggle this out. And then go ahead and make sure this hose is pulled off of that clamp. All right, next we're going to use a 13mm to remove this bolt. All right, now our factory air inlet is going to go away. We've got a couple of fasteners holding that in place. So what you want to do is find the notch on each one of those fasteners and pop that up. And then once that's up, you can pop the fastener out. Do that with both the fasteners. All right, so now we've got 3 more fasteners, a couple up here and 1 back here that need to be popped loose. We're just going to use a fastener removal tool. Now we can go ahead and pop out the factory air box all in one piece. Okay, so here's the factory tube that we just took off. The inlet air temperature sensor is right here. That is going to port over to our new tube. So we have to pull that out. What we have to do is turn that not quite 90 degrees counterclockwise. But before we do that, there is a little bit of a tab right here that needs to go over top of a lock. You want to make sure you don't break off that tab, but you want to pry up on it just a little bit to get it over top of the lock. Then once you get it about here, you want to wiggle it back and forth as you pull out. It will give you some resistance because of this O-ring, but you want to pull that all the way out. There's your inlet air temperature sensor. All right, next we're going to go ahead and turn our attention to the factory air box. Here is a grommet that this bolt went through when we held that on, and we just removed this bolt. So next we need to pull this grommet out. Best way to do that is to work the metal sleeve out first, and then the grommet will pop right out. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and grab our new air box from S&B. Now if you look at the shape of it, over here is the attachment point to the body of the truck. That's where this factory grommet is going to go into. So you're going to see you've got a hole here. Just fit that grommet into that hole. Once that's popped in and in place, we've also got the little metal piece that goes in from the inside. We just press it through. All right, now we're going to go ahead and rotate the air box around. On this side, if you've got a 2017 or newer 3.5 EcoBoost, you're also going to want to take a little bolt with washer out of your kit and go from the inside through this hole. Now, it's a pretty tight fit, so the best way to do it is just kind of turn it by hand to get it all the way through. Next, what we're going to do is take this bracket and then use the provided nylock nut and tighten it down using the 7/16 wrench and ratchet. All right, now we're going to go ahead and install the cuff. Now this tab needs to be facing down. Just fit it right over top of the opening in the airbox. Once it's pushed all the way on, we'll want to take our largest band clamp, make sure it's loosened up enough, slide it over top, and then tighten that down with an 8mm. All right, now we're going to install our new inlet. This, you're going to notice you've got 2 holes on the top and 2 holes on the bottom. They're going to line up to the 2 holes on the top and the bottom on the air box. Just fit it on place. And next you're going to have some rivets that go through. These rivets, the way they work is you're going to have one go through the top and then one come up through the bottom. They're going to crisscross each other, and as they push together, they lock. So I'm not going to push them together here because they're really hard to get back apart. So fit this one down like so, and this one comes up from the bottom. And do all 4 holes like that. All right, now we're going to take our new air tube, flip it upside down. We're going to notice we've got a hole here. This is where our inlet air temperature sensor is going to go. So in our kit, we've also got another little grommet. That grommet just goes right into that hole. Once that's installed in there, we're going to go ahead and move to our hose couplers. So before you fit that on though, go ahead, it's a lot easier to do it this way. Put the hose clamp onto the coupler and then slide the coupler onto the tube. Again, make sure you're only going right up to that edge where it's raised. Once that's in place, we can go ahead and tighten that down. Just get it nice and snug. All right, next we need to go ahead and insert our air temperature sensor into the hole. Now this leg right here needs to be facing towards the opening. S&B has also put a little notch on their tube. Before you insert it though, you want to remove the O-ring. Pull off the O-ring and then it'll fit in. Now it needs to be seated all the way down to the very base, just like so. All right, now we're going to go ahead and slide these hose clamps on. We're just going to set them in place for right now. Next, we can run over to the engine compartment and make sure everything's prepped so that this can go in. Okay, now underneath where our new air box is going to go, we're going to have a couple of vent tubes that come up. Now this vent tube right now is coming to this side of this vent tube. It actually needs to be coming up from the other side. So the way we're going to correct that is we're going to disconnect both these vent tubes. How we do that is squeeze on the connector and push out. That way this will slide off. Same with this one. Push out, slide off. And now we're just going to swap positions. Slide this one back over place, snap it down, and then slide this one back over place and snap it down. All right, now looking at the bottom of your air box, you're going to see a couple of box prongs that are just like the ones on the bottom of your factory air box because they're going to fit right into the factory location. So I'm just going to rotate this down and drop it into place. All right, now we're going to go ahead and take our factory hardware and reattach our new air box to the inside of the truck. All right, now this bracket that we installed to our air box is actually conveniently in the spot where it needs to be for this fastener to reattach. So we're going to go ahead and pop that in. All right, now on the back side of the air box, we're also going to find a little hole right back here. And we're going to take this fastener and attach it to that hole. And that'll secure that out of the way. Okay, now here we've got a couple of locations that we're going to have included fasteners to go into the factory locations. And these are just push pin fasteners. So set them in place and push them down to lock them. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take our new intake tube and slide it into our new air box. Now when we do that, make sure you're mindful of where your clamps are because you're going to need to tighten them up in just a minute. This is a tight fit. Just work it into place. All right, now before we attach our couplers to our air tube, we need to go ahead and first make sure that air tube is not pushed as far in as it can go. You want that air tube to be out of the box a little bit. Then we can go ahead and attach our filter. Now, one way this filter can go in, you want to turn it this way, then this way. That way it can drop down into the air box. Once it's in the air box, we can rotate it back around and line it up to the air tube. Then we can slide it over the end of the air tube. And then we can go ahead and fish the rest of the air tube into the air box so the filter can go all the way onto the air tube. Once that's in place, we can go ahead and tighten down the filter. All right, now with our filter in place and tightened down, we can move our air tube around to get it lined up to the bottom and also to the top factory air tubes. Get those attached and tighten down the band clamps. We're going to do the lower one first, and then we can line up the top. All right, now for the polycarbonate shield, I've already gone ahead and peeled off the protective coating and installed the rubber seal around it. Now we're just going to line it up to the holes that are already in the cold air intake. We've also got some bolts with some rubber isolator washers. I've got those installed on those bolts. We're just going to get them started in place for right now. We don't want to tighten anything on until everything is lined up. And once it's lined up, go ahead and tighten it down with a Phillips head screwdriver. Okay, one thing you will notice is that our temperature sensor has moved from here all the way back to here. So what we're going to do, our connector is going to get an extension plugged into it. So I'm going to plug that in. This is in our kit. And then bring that over and then plug that into the air temperature sensor. Well, we cleaned up the wiring with some zip ties and we reconnected the negative battery terminal, and that concludes the installation. If you have any questions, call the experts or visit us online.